Golden Black Live, you're here, and we're glad Dave Shondell's here, and I'm also glad Tom Dienhart's here. But this is we're glad for everything today. I want to thank our sponsors, Hilton Garden Inn. We're glad for them as well. Tomorrow's a big day, State HDI tonight. Tara Mason, a good friend of the show, so to speak, our 10th year of doing this, and Dave has been on. He gets paid $10 every time he's on the show. He's been on 40, so I owe him some money. State Farm agent Trent Johnson, TrentIsMyAgent.com, and Triple X on the hill, but on the level of Purdue tradition since 1929. Dave, a big week. Every week in the Big Ten is nuts in terms of what you have to deal with. This week, a very up week. Obviously, the big win against Nebraska, and then I know you never take wins over Indiana for granted, but you've had a lot of them in a row, and that's been a good thing.
Yeah, it's really surprising that we've been able to beat your arch rival as often as we can, because as they tell you, and I believe it's true, when Indiana plays Purdue or Ohio State plays Michigan, or you can go on and on and on, anything is likely to happen. But our players have done a really good job of being focused and prepared for those matches with Indiana, and therefore we've had a pretty good string.
Yeah, and did that in 3 sets. Still, it's always, because you see a lot of those kids. I mean, you recruit nationwide, but you're familiar with a lot of the kids on the Indiana team. They know you, you know them. Familiarity breeds contempt, I guess. But it makes for an interesting rival. And the fact that you've done it 17 times in a row is just unbelievable.
Well, they brought some new players in this year.
Yeah.
They actually started 6 seniors.
Yeah.
Which you have to be concerned when you're playing a team with that kind of experience, and 2 or 3 of them were transfers that came in. One came in from Louisville, Sloan. Dad played at IU a few years ago in basketball.
Yeah, Brian.
And she's a nice player. They brought an all-conference player from LSU as a middle hitter, transferred in. So they had talent. We had to just prevent them from running their offense. And it's kind of like a football team that lacks a good offensive line. You can't really do much. You can have a lot of talent in the backfield and even with your receivers, but if you don't have a great offensive line, you're going to struggle. And they didn't pass the ball very well, and we served really tough, and we kind of took them out of their system early and often on that particular night. Much different than the match before at Indiana, where it was hotly contested.
Yeah, no question.
Big game this weekend, Dave. We talked a little bit off camera. Minnesota Golden Gophers coming in, the defending Big Ten champions, correct. And you guys had a big win recently at home against Nebraska. And again, Alan talked about the IU game. Now you have the Gophers. Sort of talk about the measuring stick they'll provide for you guys on Sunday.
Well, it's really similar to our situation we had with Nebraska.
Yeah.
Early in the season, we played at Minnesota, and we didn't play poorly. We just didn't play well enough, and lost in three straight, but we were in each set. Now you get them at your place. We feel like we've made substantial progress since then. This is a team that's playing at a high level for Purdue, and I think on the home boards of Beelan Court, we'll continue to play that way. And I think we have an opportunity to upset Minnesota. I know that they'll be ready. They may be the most athletic team in the Big Ten. They're experienced. They've got terrific athletes in every position. Their setter is relatively new, and that's caused maybe a little slowness in their growth as the season has gone on. But they're 9-1 in Big Ten play, and they're in second place. So they will come ready. And Hugh McCutcheon is one of the best coaches, not just in the country, but in the world. He's coached a gold medal team in the Olympics and a silver medal team in the Olympics. So yeah, he's a pretty fair coach.
Yeah. Grace Cleveland gets the honors this week, but she's come up big. But talk about her progress, but also progress of your entire team. I mean, this has to be at the gauntlet you run every year. You've got to have kids that get better from August 15th up to November 1st. They've got to keep getting better. I mean, and it looks like that's what's been happening.
Well, and we take a lot of pride in what we do at Purdue in developing talent. We always aren't going to get the elite players in the Big Ten. A lot of times they're going to go to Penn State, Nebraska, Minnesota, places like that. But we want to get that same athlete, the same physicality, and then because we know that we can train that we could develop those players when
Yeah.
they come to Purdue. And, you know, Grace is a great example, although Grace was the 13th ranked recruit in her
Yeah.
class, so she wasn't, chopped beef. She's not a bad player. But she's so coachable.
Yeah.
And continues to get bigger and stronger, and has been the Big Ten Player of the Week twice. She did go into a little bit of a slump, but we survived it.
Yeah.
When she went that way, we hung on and won some 5-set matches. But she's getting really good help. Caitlin Newton,
Yeah,
I think, may be the most improved player in the Big Ten Conference when she's really tuned in. Her jump's going up about 3 or 4 inches, which is really unusual for a female athlete to have their jump in 1 year improve that much, but it's a tribute to what she has done physically to make herself a better volleyball athlete. Our setting situation is really good. Haley Bush is taking some good steps forward. Blake Muller has gotten healthy.
Yeah.
Story with Blake, and you can't go into a lot of details, but she's got 3 or 4 nagging injuries that go along with being a fifth-year senior. We've got same thing in football and other sports, guys that have those kind of issues, but she is really tough. She's a fierce competitor, and now she's kind of gotten over the hump, feels a lot better about where she is physically, and I think that she's given us a nice addition in the middle too. So I like our balance, and we've got enough depth that we can survive. We're in a pretty good spot right now.
Yeah, no doubt.
I mean, your coaching chops are well documented, Dave. But one thing that always struck me about you is your ability to connect with the fans through social media.
Yeah.
You do a great job.
Thank you.
I'd sort of like you to talk about, what it is what's your goal, what's your motivation, and just how you got to be so good working your thumbs on the old Twitter dial.
Well, I appreciate the question. My mom was a journalism teacher
There you go.
back at Northside High School, and I had my mom, and she taught a lot of things. She taught PE, she taught elementary education and English and a lot of different things. But when she settled in, she was a journalism and publications teacher. I got involved in that, and when I was in high school, I was both sports editor of the yearbook and the newspaper. I like to write. I've got some writing ability, which comes in handy not just in social media, but in recruiting. In a day where you've got to express a lot through emails and notes that you send out, I feel pretty competent that I can send a message that way. But we're in a sport, volleyball, and volleyball is growing like crazy. And if you don't know that, you're not paying attention. It's the fastest growing sport for men and women in our country. But a lot of the media, and no slap in the face of anybody
but
here,
absolutely true.
they haven't adapted to volleyball. And so what we learned, and what I learned in particular, was as social media grew and developed, you don't have to rely on other people to get your word out. And so I've tried to be a leader in that, to put it out there, whether it's through my outlets or Purdue volleyball outlets, the people we hire in our sports information or communications, as it's called now. That's something I'm really looking for, is somebody who has that energy and that desire and that ability to spread the word. And if you guys, I know, have noticed in the last 5 years how much progress Purdue has made in all those areas.
Right.
Okay, we're a leader now, where we were a follower, and now we're a leader. And somewhere along the way, I think it was still when Morgan was here, but certainly it has even advanced with the new administration. But that's something that we believe is huge. And when you're Purdue, and again, this isn't negative, but we're Purdue, we're a conservative school without a state name. And so because of those things, you have to work harder to let people know, number one, where you are in the world, okay, that we're in West Lafayette, Indiana, because a lot of people don't even know where Purdue is. So there's a lot of things that you have to do to get the word out, and luckily there have been a lot of great things that have been happening at Purdue, and through the help of national news and media, and then what we've done at Purdue, it's really, I think, changed the complexion of how people look at our university.
And Alan said you have a weekly segment on the Big Ten Radio Network too?
Yeah.
I mean, that speaks to Dave's
Yeah, that's
media
fun.
savvy. And I know,
I hear
Dave,
about every week,
you
so.
talked about your social media, Facebook as well.
Yeah.
Mondays, Dave conducts your press conference that way.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about embracing the technology and getting the word out on your own. Again, you've really been at the
Well,
vanguard
and
forefront
we
of
hope
that.
we're not overdoing it. I mean, you get to a point,
Yeah,
sometimes
that's
it's
a
overkill.
good
But
question.
and that's something we always measure, but our people think no. I mean, when you look at the hits that we're getting from those Monday deals, we're just under 50% of what Jeff Brahma is getting on football. So people are paying attention to it, and I know that Sharon has looked at that as well and is going to try to do the same thing with women's basketball.
Go in and
this
ask for a
winter.
raise.
Yeah. No, thank you.
That's a conversation with beer. We have to talk about that. So, you have and that's what I think is really interesting is you can craft your own message, and you happen to be good at it because you know how to communicate. Your podcast as well has been well.
Yeah.
If people want more
You forgot to
information.
mention we've also got a podcast. that
Yeah,
goes out every
podcast.
2 weeks.
well, but I
Yeah.
mean, in terms of that, you know how to do it, and it comes on. I think one of the things that works best for you is that you also say real things, and I think that's different. I think sometimes when you're in social media, if you're just chirping, I mean, you'll talk about other things that are going on in the world too that are important.
Yeah.
Maybe not politics.
Try not
but,
to cross that line.
though
I can
wish
get a
you-
guy in trouble
though-
real
though
fast.
I wish you would sometimes. But no, I do think that's an extremely important thing of what you do. One of the things I think is really interesting is how, and we obviously have looked at football and some challenges that you have to deal with as a coach. Every year in Big Ten volleyball, with maybe the exception of I think maybe Penn State's run the table in years past, but you're going to have to deal with times when you're not playing well or you're playing well, but you're still losing. What have you learned in your years of doing this of how to handle that with your kids to keep them up, keep them positive, but also know that they got to raise the level of their play?
I think the most important thing there is you have to have a really good relationship with every single player on your team. And in volleyball, we can kind of do that because we have, like this year, I think 17 players on the roster. Jeff Brom's got 110.
Yeah.
Jeff can't have that kind of relationship. You better hope his staff does.
Yeah.
Because you can't keep everybody happy and satisfied or know what's going on with them, what kind of problems they're having. But our staff works really, really hard. That we're a relationship-driven staff. And it still doesn't mean you don't have problems, because at some point in time, great athletes who aren't playing don't understand why they're not. Or they're better than that, more than that, their parents don't understand why they're not. And then that filters through. So I just think, that, number one, establishing those relationships, trying to create great teammates, even more than great players. And I think one of the things I learned with we've had some great athletes. We've been fortunate to have, Annie Drews is going to be on the Olympic team this coming summer, which is the first female athlete in the state of Indiana to ever be able to do that. Danielle Catino may have been the best athlete that I've ever coached. Sheridan Atkinson is going to make big money at 6'6" playing professionally. But despite that, what I've learned is that more than being 6'6" and more than having great talent, you have to be a great teammate and have, in our sport, where you don't even get to hold on to the ball.
Yeah.
It's a fast game, and all you're doing is you have to trust each other, you have to believe in each other. And so I think to answer your question, one is you have to have relationships with all your players, and they have to trust you, you have to trust them. And number two, you have to develop teammates and have that cohesiveness as a team, where the team is more important than whether or not your opportunity to play comes along as often as you like.
Has that gotten our teams more cohesive now because of all the bombardment of social media? Do you find that to be the
I think
case?
social media has been really, really bad for team sports or sport.
But does
for
that
teams
cause
in
them to
general.
bond together or not?
That'd be a great question for our players
Yeah.
to ask. I think that makes it harder on coaches and players to enjoy what they're doing, because they're constantly comparing themselves to what's happening with somebody else, because it's all over social media, and so the people in their hometown are wondering why aren't they playing and why aren't they getting that same kind of exposure that somebody else is getting. So you have to deal with that, and that's what I'm talking about. You have to have those kind of conversations individually. You have to have those conversations as a team, and you better hope your staff is pretty good at it too, because you can't handle all of it.
Yeah.
I always wondered the dynamic, Dave, of a male coaching a female sport. If you were coaching males, would you handle them any differently than if you coach females, obviously? And I don't know, men and women are different psychologically, emotionally, and I always wondered about that dynamic. If you're obviously able to relate and develop relationships with these people, athletes are athletes, I get it, but you have to admit that there's obviously a difference psychologically with females. There's some problems and issues that they're going to have and that men won't, and vice versa.
I think the biggest thing that I've learned from both studying this and being around it for 40 years is that at the end of the day, women still want to be friends when it's over. okay? I mean, they don't want to have altercations. So leadership is harder to pry out of them. You know, you have to
Okay.
really encourage them to take charge of situations. They don't want to say something that's going to upset somebody that might last for a period of time. Where I think, and I've coached men as well, you
Yeah.
know, in different sports, they're not afraid to say anything at any time, and then they get over it.
Yeah.
You know, and then when it's over, they're out playing pickup basketball, you know, together, and it's over. But that's one thing. But as far as pushing and expectations, there's no difference.
Okay.
I think that's a misconception that some people have as well. The women aren't going to work as hard. That's ridiculous. The women will work harder, okay, if you ask them to and you give them the reasons why, and they're motivated to the right level. But you know, there are some differences. I think right now we're in a world where negativity isn't going to work for anybody.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty much a straight shooter, but I try to use a pretty positive overtone with it. And if I'm going to get on you about something, I'm going to tell you something positive first, and then I'm going to tell you, you know, what I think about what I didn't like, and then I might have to come back and tell you something positive again.
Yeah.
Okay, but that's kind of how it works, and you hope that they pick it up, because what you learn is that all they hear is a negative.
Yeah.
Sure.
They're not hearing the positive, and they might leave practice and think all you did was, you know, chew on them the whole practice, and that really isn't the case. But that is kind of the way that not just young people, everybody is that way.
Right.
So what I've learned a lot, I've gotten this. My older brother Steve is a really successful
Yeah.
coach in his own right, and my younger brother. These are the two most positive coaches I've ever been around, and so I've learned a lot from them, that they've been so successful, and they never get upset with people, hardly ever at all. They never go that direction. And so it's helped that with John there, that I can be a little bit the other way and be a little bit more demanding, a little bit more straightforward, because we've got other coaches there that are going to work it the other direction.
Yeah, Purdue royalty, family royalty, the Shondell family, and of course your dad as well, the Brahm family. But want to talk about, you know, that wonderful family dynamic that you got to still talk to your brothers, and you got to talk to your dad about what's going on. How do you view that? How is that a positive, and how is that a challenge for you? And
Well,
you've been doing it for a long
No,
time.
it was a real challenge when my two brothers were coaching other high school
Yeah,
teams, and
yeah.
I was coaching the high school team, and we were often having to play them the first
Yeah.
round of the sectional tournament. I remember having to play my brother Steve at Muncie Burris, and they would be 1 and we would be 2, not in the country, not in
Yeah.
the state, but the nation.
That's right.
And we're playing them in the first round of the
Yeah.
tournament. And well, what always got kind of ugly was that my brother Steve was at Muncie Burris, which
Yeah.
I compare kind of a west side.
Yeah.
All these university
Yeah.
people and really good academic people, but Burris had no boundary.
Yeah.
The state was their boundary.
Yeah.
And so they could get kids to transfer in at any time. And so every year you'd think that you're going to have more talent than them. You wouldn't, because 3 kids would come in from other schools that were the 3 of the best players in the state. And when that started happening to a kid of mine, then it got kind of ugly.
Yeah.
Thanksgiving dinners were kind of shaky for a while. No, I have a great relationship. You know, my dad's now 90 years old, and he's had a broken hip, and now
He's doing okay?
He's doing really good
Yeah,
right now.
great
he
story there.
was at our match against Indiana
Yeah.
on Wednesday. He's going to be here on Sunday, and he sits right down at the end, and he still takes it all in and
Yeah.
gives me feedback. And Steve is the same. You know,
Yeah.
he'll call me as soon as the match is over to give me some thoughts on what he thinks, and communicates with our players as well. And of course, you know, John's one of the best things about the job I have right now is for 17 years I've been able to work with my brother John, who is 12 years younger than me, who I didn't get a chance to spend much time with.
Yeah.
You know, because when I was married at 21, he was only 9 years
Yeah.
old, so we didn't quite have that relationship early on, but it's certainly been nice ever since.
It's been a big part of your success. In terms of in where you are in your career, and you've done this for a long time, what continues to energize you? Is it just the challenge of making the next step in the tournament? I mean, what makes you get up in the morning and say, "Boy, I love this job, and I'm ready to do more"?
Several things. One, if you don't wake up that way, you're going to get beat a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm not interested in that. I'm really competitive,
Yeah.
and you can't even think about coaching in this league if you're not ultra competitive. That's all there is to it. And people who aren't competitive at getting this league, they're just not going to last very long. So I like the competition.
Yeah.
I mean, this is everything and more than I ever expected it to be.
Yeah.
I mean, our league, from the time I got here 17 years ago to now, has gone from being the 5th or 6th best league in the country in volleyball to clearly the best league. And so it's just gotten tougher and tougher, and that makes it a challenge. But the fact that we've got incredible student athletes at Purdue makes walking into that gym a lot of fun every single time. This might be the best group of people I've ever coached.
Wow.
And,
That's saying something.
And I've been coaching a lot of different teams, and I've had great groups. And I'm not trying to be critical of anybody else, because I've been lucky at Purdue. Purdue attracts a really good character and caliber person. But even back in high school, this group is really special, and that's why I think you're going to continue to see us develop. And that when we get into close matches, we're going to compete, and we're going to hang in there. The leadership is really good on this team, so. Those are reasons why, and I mean, and I just love what I'm doing, and I was fortunate when I took the job 17 years ago. My family was pretty much grown.
Yeah.
My son was a freshman, and I still at Harrison, and I still regret that I did not get a chance to see him play sports as much. He was a football player, and I never got a chance to watch high school football because we were playing every night, and those are things that you regret. But fortunately, for the most part, they were through, so I could commit and devote almost every second of my life to trying to help this program be successful. And not everybody can do that, nor should they.
Yeah.
I mean, there are a lot of coaches right now that aren't doing that,
Yeah.
and they're still successful. But if I'm going to do something, I'm diving in.
All right. Well, we will be watching closely, and yet the next 5 and 6 weeks you'll be walking the tightrope, so to speak. And yet this is a team that a lot of high-end potential, and it's already showing that with the win this past week. And it will be a big challenge again Sunday afternoon, 1 o'clock.
Yeah, before we go, Dave, a couple questions. I got to know, as a Purdue guy, when you go to XXX, what do you order? And this is a personal question. Who's your barber? If you need one, I got one for you.
Well, when I go to XXX, I usually get breakfast.
Yeah.
Breakfast special?
I'm a breakfast guy. Yeah, their breakfast special is awesome. Biscuit and gravy with eggs over easy and the fried potatoes and all that. It's all pretty good. So I enjoy XXX. But you're looking at my barber right now. Okay? I've saved my wife and I a lot of money over the last several years by getting the clippers out and just going to work. And I haven't done it for about 5 days, so it's getting along right now. I'm sure everybody noticed. But that hasn't been a problem for me.
You're one and the same, buddy.
You guys are you're brothers almost. So
it makes it easy.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, well, thanks so much for your time today. Good luck not only this weekend but the rest of the season. We'll take a short break, bring in Tim House from John Purdue Club, and we'll carry on our conversation on this Friday, which is always Friday edition of Gold and Black Live. But stay tuned. We'll be back in a couple minutes.